2024 was the year when Elon Musk's boring company finally gained traction and began to show the world what they are really capable of. This is still Elon's most obscure company as far as the average person is concerned, but that will change pretty soon. Going into 2025, the potential of the boring company is about to rise high enough that everyone will be taking notice. And nowhere is that more apparent than Las Vegas. This is the city where the boring company first broke out of the SpaceX parking lot and started making real infrastructure for real people. That is the Las Vegas Convention Center Loop, which is still going strong after 4 years of operation. The original Convention Center Loop has now been expanded to connect with new stations at Westgate, Riviera, Resorts World, and Encore hotels. Looking at this map here, we can see the existing tunnels in light blue and the future tunnels in dark blue. Now, connecting the convention center with nearby hotels is a very nice feature to have, but it's still keeping the boring company contained to one area. As you can see, they have plans to go way beyond, and where that starts is with the orange line on the map that signifies a new tunnel that is under construction as we speak. And that is going to be the primary focus of the boring company in 2025. The reason that they've chosen this one particular line as their top priority is because this link will run all the way down from the convention center along Paradise Road to the Las Vegas International Airport, and it will connect with a series of new hotels along the way. So yes, this is still an extension of their convention center service, but it's probably the most effective way for the boring company to break out into the city at large. Using Paradise Road was a smart move because it's relatively empty, much less dense than the main strip over on Las Vegas Boulevard, so the boring company has plenty of empty lots to use as staging grounds. We can actually use Google Street View to spy on a couple of those boring sites. One is on the 4300 block of Paradise Road, just behind the Embassy Suites Hotel. It's a big empty lot that is full of boring company equipment. You can actually see the conveyor belt that pulls material up from inside the tunnel. As the head of the boring machine cuts the earth away, that crusted rock and dirt falls onto a moving platform that carries it up to the surface. So we can tell from the street view that as of November 2024, there was a boring machine in the ground digging north towards the convention center. Moving down about half a block, we can see the parking lot outside Virgin Hotels is also completely taken over by the boring company equipment. This is where we saw a boring machine break through in May 2024, and it came up from the south in the direction of the airport. So to figure out where that boring machine originated from, we have to go down to the 4700 block of Paradise Road. We're getting very close to the airport now, and when we street view peek at this lot, we can actually see the tops of 2 boring tunnels. This is a dual bore tunnel for two-way traffic, and we can see the conveyor belt in action on the farthest tunnel, meaning that there is tunneling in progress as of November 2024, so we can assume that there will be a second machine breaking through at the Virgin parking lot very soon. Now, you might notice that this site is pretty close to the airport, but it's not at the airport, and it's still far enough away that it would be really awkward for people with luggage to walk over there to catch a ride. They'd have to get a taxi, and then if you're already in a taxi, well, what's the point? Anyway, luckily there is a giant empty lot literally across the street from the airport terminal. So that would be decent, but there's still 8 lanes of traffic for people to cross. So we have to assume that some very high level and sensitive negotiations are either happening or will happen between the boring company, the airport, and the federal government. Because it's an international airport, the feds would have control over what does or doesn't go on there. But Elon and Trump are bros now, so that shouldn't be a problem. Anyway, moving back up to the convention center, where we've also been seeing some new activity, at the same time that boring machines have been moving from south to north along Paradise, there has also been tunneling from north to south out of the convention center main hall and into a small parking lot outside the south hall. At this point, it's pretty hard to tell what is new construction on the convention center expansion and what is boring company related, but we can make another prediction for 2025 based on the activity that we are seeing. So, you know the main boring company station at the convention center, the big underground site with all of the colorful lights and stuff? That's where the new tunnel coming up from the airport needs to connect. So it's pretty likely that the boring company will actually need to shut down operation in that central station to bring in the new connector and expand the capacity and capability of the station. Now, instead of people moving 2 ways through Central, there will actually need to be 4 lines converging here. One to the existing tunnels to South Hall and West Hall, the new Encore Hotel connector, and the airport extension. And then for future expansion, Central Station will also need a tunnel heading north to the Strip. So this station is going to need capacity to move a lot of people through in a very efficient way. That's going to be a big job, probably the most complex project that the Boring Company has taken on so far. If we are being optimistic, then it's possible that the Boring Company will get all of this new airport infrastructure online in 2025, but we'll have to see how smoothly things go. Anyway, moving on from Las Vegas, let's go to Texas and into the Cybertunnel. This is at Tesla's Gigafactory in Austin, and the tunnel was just completed in November. The Cybertunnel was dug from Tesla's delivery lot on the far side of the highway, under the road, and came up inside the new southern extension of the Gigafactory. Most of this extension is going to be taken up by Tesla's new Cortex supercomputer, but there is also a small extension of the general assembly area for Cybertruck, just enough to allow them to drive the completed vehicles into the tunnel, under the highway, and into the delivery zone. We can see that Tesla is busy putting the finishing touches on the outside end of the tunnel. This is drone video from Joe Tetmeyer that shows a metal structure being built over the mouth of the Cybertunnel that's in the same shape as a Cybertruck. They are also laying the asphalt that will allow the freshly built vehicles to drive over to this big white structure. That's where every car gets final cleaning and finishing before being charged and staged for pickup and delivery. So beginning in 2025, there will be a constant stream of Cybertrucks moving through this tunnel. And we can say with a pretty high level of certainty that those Cybertrucks will be driving themselves out of the factory. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot to be gained from having a tunnel if you still need to shuttle drivers back from one side of the highway to the other. And we know that Tesla is already doing a lot of testing right now with the Cybercab vehicle on the Giga Texas property. That car may or may not have a person in the driver's seat, but we know that it doesn't have a steering wheel or pedals, so it's not likely they could do much. So this is where we finally get to see Tesla autonomy cross over with Boring Company construction. This has been the plan all along, but it's been a long time coming. If they can prove that self-driving in the tunnels is safe in the controlled environment of the Cybertunnel, then it should make things easier to gradually introduce self-driving in Vegas. Now, if we're talking about making that entire gigantic Las Vegas city loop actually usable, then fully autonomous vehicles are going to be a must. But there's one more big thing that the Boring Company needs from Tesla: a bigger vehicle. One that makes it easier to move a lot of people at one time, something that's effortless to step in and out of. And that's something that Tesla has already revealed: the Robovan, or Robovan. Or have they? Will the Robovan that we saw in October at WeRobot actually fit inside a boring tunnel? I've seen many people who are skeptical, but I think we found some very telling clues. So if we look at the design of the Robovan, aside from the fact that it looks like a 1930s Art Deco steam train, we can see that it's not very wide, but it is pretty tall, potentially too tall. But I think Tesla's lead designer Franz von Holzhausen knew what he was doing here. Check out this image created by Tesla that shows the Robovan from a side profile. We can see one man walking by and another fellow in a wheelchair coming down from the inside. And this actually shows us that the doorway of the van is not that high. Even in a wheelchair, this guy doesn't have much empty space above his head, and it appears to be about level with the standing man's head. So, I don't know, about 6 feet or so from the road to the top of the door. So that opening is probably closer to 5 feet, and that's why you can see people bending as they climb out at the WeRobot event. Now, if we flip over to this other image of the Robovan being used on a wedding day, we get a very clear angle on the roofline of the van. Notice how it's much lower at the edges and then ramps up to a higher point in the middle. So even though the Robovan appears very tall, it's really only that tall right along the center line. Now, what other shapes are lower at the sides and higher in the middle? You guessed it, a tunnel. So to me, that's pretty obvious. Why wouldn't you make the doorway a little higher so that people didn't have to bend unless there was some very important practical reason to keep the roofline as low as possible at the outer edge of the vehicle? And then, making one more stop on our boring tour, we're in Bastrop, Texas, just down the road from Austin, and this is where the Boring Company builds and tests new equipment. Recently, we saw them conducting some emergency drills with local firefighters inside the test tunnel. And we've also caught a glimpse into the Boring factory where the Prufrock 4 machine is being finalized. But even more interesting, the Boring Company hints that there is a Prufrock 5 visible in the image as well. Don't worry if you can't see the difference, I can't either, but the important point is that the Boring Company is still very much in the process of expanding their arsenal of boring machines. With each iteration of Prufrock, they become faster and more efficient at their work. So we know that going into 2025, there will be even more progress than what we've seen this year or any other year, potentially more than every other year combined. So stay tuned.